This year, the focus was more on Apple intelligence and less on hardware enhancements. But we do see certain new elements on the Apple iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, particularly the new multifunctional camera control button. There's also a new and controversial desert titanium color instead of the tranquil blue from last year. Apple doesn't tend to introduce radical changes with every iPhone iteration, so the small-scale changes were already anticipated. That, however, does not mean there aren't any thrilling alterations at all. That's why many of you may be compelled to try out the iPhone 16 Pro Max instead of the elder iPhone 15 Pro Max, particularly if you're coming from a much older generation. But what about those who have the previous year's model? The iPhone 15 Pro Max was the best-selling iPhone until June 2024. If you're among the fortunate millions who bought the iPhone 15 Pro Max, should you upgrade to the newer iPhone 16 Pro Max? Let's answer that query. On the surface, you may not be able to identify many differences between the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the older 15 Pro Max, but there certainly are some. For starters, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is marginally taller, wider, and consequently heavier than the last year's Pro Max. This enables the new model to accommodate a new and expansive 6.9-inch OLED display, up from the 6.7 inches of last year. The overall design of the iPhone 16 Pro Max remains essentially unchanged, except for the addition of a new multi-purpose camera control button. You can simply press the icon to activate the camera app, and then tap again to snap a photo or tap and hold to start recording video. Like an actual camera's shutter button, the iPhone's camera control button allows for two-step presses, backed by haptic feedback, to let you accomplish a wide range of functions, such as bringing up manual controls or magnification levels. Once any menu is activated, you can also glide over the icon to navigate the menus or zoom in or out. In the coming months, Apple will introduce more functionality, such as a Google Lens-style visual search using the camera control button directly. Apart from the new button, there are few other discernible changes, but those that stand out include the new and sleeker finishes on both the glass rear and the titanium frame. Although 3 of the 4 available colors have the same names as last year, there is some visual distinction, with this year's models appearing less dull than last year, at least in the images. We will have a clearer notion over the course of the next few weeks as we review the phone. In addition to these outward changes, Apple has now added 4 microphones to allow you to capture more spatially accurate audio that can be used with AirPods, Vision Pro, or other sound systems capable of surround sound. The display, as noted above, is now larger than on last year's model. At 6.9 inches, the display is even larger than that of the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and can seem impractically large for some individuals. If that doesn't apply to you, you will be delighted to see Apple chisel down the surrounding bezels even further. That may enable simpler gesture-based sliding across the interface and could appear marginally superior when both phones are compared side by side. But otherwise, you probably won't notice. The larger dimension also results in a higher resolution, but that's most of the advantage you get here over last year's model. Unlike other manufacturers raking in on the brightness bid, Apple isn't interested in promoting ever higher nits values. The iPhone 16 Pro Max still offers the same 1600 nits of typical brightness and 2000 nits in high brightness mode. That's not to say the iPhone 16 Pro Max's display will seem bland in comparison, particularly since most other manufacturers rely on rhetoric to state higher figures than what we would experience in real life. You get the point though, and that is the iPhone 16 Pro Max display gets bare minimum enhancements over the last year. The 120Hz dynamic refresh rate toggling, due to ProMotion and LTPO tech, remains the same, and so does the dynamic island up top. Despite minimal changes on the surface, there are considerable enhancements under the shell, primarily as Apple works to deliver sufficient capacity for on-device AI applications. Apple's new A18 Pro processor on the iPhone 16 Pro Max succeeds the A17 Pro from last year. As part of Apple's second generation of 3nm iPhone processors, the A18 Pro is fabricated on TSMC N3E process, resulting in greater efficiency than the previous iteration. For its CPU, the A18 Pro maintains a 6-core design, 2 performance and 4 efficiency cores, but the frequencies are expected to be boosted up. While Apple doesn't disclose the specific clock frequencies, it claims a 15% performance increase over the A17 Pro. The CPU also has 2 dedicated sectors or scalable matrix extension units for improved performance in AI or machine learning tasks, while low-level tasks can run off it without engaging the dedicated neural engine. Next, the GPU on the A18 Pro also comes with the same 6-core design as last year, but Apple claims the desktop-class architecture facilitates 20% improved performance. The new processor also supports rendering frames that are twice as fast as hardware-accelerated ray tracing. The 16-core neural motor is capable of up to 35 tera operations per second. While Apple claims it's twice as rapid as the previous generation, it is referring to the A16 and not the A17 Pro, suggesting there may not be a tangible improvement. What could contribute to improved AI performance is the new 17% quicker memory on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Besides AI applications, the quicker RAM could also result in an overall improvement in efficacy. While Apple Intelligence is a compelling reason to upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, know that the iPhone 15 Pro Max will also be capable of all the AI-related functionality, and Apple hasn't expressly disclosed plans to limit anything to the iPhone 16 Pro. Additionally, there's an enhanced passive cooling solution inside the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Considering the iPhone 15 Pro Max ran too hot initially, and the problem really hasn't gone away entirely, we hope the more efficient architecture and cooling enhancements will bring some respite. During our review, we will further evaluate this aspect. In terms of connectivity, the iPhone 16 Pro Max receives a new Snapdragon X75 modem, and you should expect quicker 5G speeds. It supports Wi-Fi 7, though support for the 6 GHz frequency is still lacking. The iPhone 16 Pro Max also receives satellite connectivity with support for emergency SOS, calling, messages, and Find My via satellite when a standard network isn't available. Apple claims the iPhone 16 Pro provides a huge leap in battery life. It doesn't precisely reveal the capacity of the battery cell on the new phone, but the purported statistics for video playback and video streaming are up to 33 and 29 hours, respectively, from 29 and 25 hours on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which had a 4,441 mAh battery. We can't say if the enhanced battery backup has to do with a more efficient chip or a larger battery, but we will evaluate this shortly. One thing to keep in mind is that the battery backup on the iPhone 15 Pro Max has shown an unreliable pattern. On its best days, the phone lasts only up to 2 days. On its worst, more than half of the battery is depleted within a few hours of disconnecting the charger. The charging rates have yet to be verified as well. Apple doesn't make any claims about quicker charging rates, but has stepped up the MagSafe speed to 25 watts on the iPhone 16 Pro Max from 15 watt previously. For non-Apple or non-Apple certified accessories, the iPhone 16 Pro Max will still be limited to 15 watt charging. That regrettably also means you will have to acquire a whole new set of chargers to get the quickest speeds. The differences between the cameras on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max are scarcely visible from the outside, but 2 of the 3 cameras have been upgraded. First, the 48 megapixels primary sensor from last year has been replaced with a new Fusion camera sensor. Although it still has a 48 megapixels resolution, Apple says the sensor now captures quicker images. Next, the iPhone 16 Pro Max now comes with a 48 megapixels ultra-wide camera instead of the previous 12 megapixels. Apple says the field of view is now wider, and you can also use this sensor to capture 48 megapixels pro-RAW photos. Meanwhile, the 5x periscopic telephoto and the 12 megapixels facial cameras remain unaltered from last year. The iPhone 16 Pro Max and other iPhone 16 models can capture spatial images with a third dimension of depth to them. Previously, the iPhone 15 Pro models could only record spatial recordings, but not spatial photos. Apple doesn't say if you can view these photos on other virtual reality headsets, but we will find out shortly. The new primary camera and the enhanced image signal processors on the A18 Pro can also allow 4K video recording at 120 frames per second with Dolby Vision, ProRes, and Log. The video segments can also be slowed down to 24 fps for a cinematic slow motion effect. Apple supplements 120 fps video with 4 microphones. In addition to capturing spatial audio, the microphones also enable you to capture sounds or voices from various distances, and machine learning algorithms on the phone help eradicate any undesirable background noises, which can be particularly useful while in post-production. The iPhone 16 Pro Max arrives with iOS 18 pre-installed. The latest version of the OS, which we encountered earlier this year through Apple's demo at its Worldwide Developers Conference, and then by attempting the beta versions ourselves, has plenty of intriguing new changes. These include, but are not limited to, customization options for app symbols and elements in the control center, new photos and camera applications, and a plethora of intelligence features. Our dedicated iOS 18 article covers these changes in much more depth. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is eligible to get iOS 18 when it releases later this month, as well as all the Apple Intelligence features, except those that depend on the camera control button. We wouldn't necessarily expect any difference in experience on both devices. The only benefit with the iPhone 16 Pro Max would be an additional year of software support. But with Apple's outstanding track record of sending software updates out for over 5 years, with day one access to all devices at once, we wouldn't necessarily fret about the iPhone 15 Pro being left out. The iPhone 16 Pro Max has a starting price of $1,199 for the 256 gigs unlocked variant. It will be up for pre-order starting September 13 and will be available starting September 20. With the introduction of the new model, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is no longer listed by Apple, though you may find it being offered by third-party vendors like Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, or certain carriers. For years, Apple has progressively enhanced the Pro iPhone models bit by bit instead of altering them drastically. This doesn't immediately make the older iPhones redundant or give owners FOMO over the latest tech features. At the same time, the gradual progressions also make the newer iPhones simpler to transition to, even if you're doing it just a generation later. The iPhone 16 Pro Max, therefore, lacks any swooping alterations. So the most important question is, do you need to upgrade from the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the new iPhone 16 Pro Max? The brief, straightforward, and apparent answer is no. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is nearly as capable as the new model and will continue to serve you well for several years. However, there are plenty of reasons why you should upgrade. First is the new camera control icon, which helps you conquer various aspects of photography and lets you assume the reins of manual controls such as exposure, ISO, or shutter speed. This could initiate the return of obliquely photographed images, something we have been losing with the advent of vertical postings on social media. The video controls provide you with abilities that may help you improve your filmmaking or persuade you to ditch your video cameras for a more convenient iPhone 16 Pro Max. The new A18 Pro processor offers top-notch performance and should endure the evolving processing requirements of on-device AI. The last piece that could make the iPhone 16 Pro Max an attractive upgrade over the iPhone 15 Pro Max are Apple's substantial trade-in benefits and pre-order offers, which could save several $100s and make the new Pro Max far less expensive than its daunting $1,200 price tag. So, share your thought below, then I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.